Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today I want to tell you something extraordinary. Today we are talking about a country that should not exist. A country that was invaded again and again and again. A country that was burned. That was destroyed. That was conquered by the greatest armies in history, and yet it survived. Every single time. Have you ever wondered how some people just refuse to disappear? How some cultures are so strong that even the most powerful armies cannot erase them? Today, we are going to talk about one of those cultures. One of the most remarkable stories in all of human history. This is the story of Iran. And it begins a very long time ago. Let us begin. For thousands of years, the greatest empires in the world made the same terrible mistake. They looked at the Iranian plateau. They saw a land they could conquer. They marched in with their armies. They were absolutely certain they would win. And many of them did win, on the battlefield. But something strange always happened after the battle was over. The Macedonian armies of Alexander the Great came here. The Roman legions came here. Arab armies swept in under the banner of a new religion. And the ferocious Mongol hordes of Genghis Khan tore through the land, leaving almost nothing behind. Any other civilization would have disappeared after so many blows. Think about the Babylonians. Think about the Hittites. Think about the Assyrians. These great civilizations are gone. They dissolved into history. They exist only in museums and books. But Iran did something completely different. Something that no other civilization in history managed to do so consistently and so completely. Iran absorbed its conquerors. Just a few decades after each invasion, something remarkable happened. The brutal invaders started speaking the Persian language. They started building Persian architecture. They adopted Persian ways of governing. They wore Persian clothes. They read Persian poetry. Again and again, Iranian culture quietly swallowed the people who had defeated it on the battlefield. How did they do this? Why Iran? Why not other civilizations? To understand this, we need to go back to the very beginning. 50,000 years ago, this land was home to Neanderthals. 36,000 years ago, they were replaced by early modern humans. But the real story begins much later. Around 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, people in this region started building settlements. Real settlements. With organization and trade and art. Archaeologists have found evidence of these ancient communities. Pottery from 4,000 years before Christ. This was not a primitive place. This was one of the earliest centers of human civilization on Earth. The first great power in this region was called Elam. The Elamites lived in the southwest of modern Iran. Their capital was a city called Susa. They were so powerful that by 2,600 years before Christ, They were practically dictating their will to the Sumerians. But the most astonishing thing happened in the 23rd century before Christ. The Akkadian king went to war with Elam. And when the conflict ended, something happened that had never happened before in human history. They signed a written treaty, a document, an official agreement between two states. Think about that for a moment. The first international treaty in recorded human history was signed in the Iranian space. Iran was present at the very birth of diplomacy, at the very birth of international law. The modern world of nations talking to each other instead of only fighting. That idea has Iranian roots. But the people we call Iranians today arrived later. Sometime between 2000 and 1500 years before Christ, nomadic tribes began moving south from the steppes of Central Asia. They were part of the great Indo-European family of peoples. And here is something fascinating. Their ancient language was related to Greek, related to Latin, related to the languages of Europe, related, in a distant way, to the English language you are learning right now. These people settled on the plateau. They called themselves Aryans. It meant noble, and they called their new homeland the land of the Aryans. Over many centuries, that name slowly changed, and it became the name we know today, Iran. They mixed with the ancient Elamite culture. They formed powerful tribes. The most important were the Medes and the Persians. And in these harsh mountains and deserts, something was born that would change the entire world. Not a weapon, not an army, something much more powerful, an idea. Long before Christianity, long before Islam, a religion was born on the Iranian plateau. It was called Zoroastrianism, and it changed the way human beings think about the universe, about time, about good and evil. For the ancient world, time was circular. The seasons came and went. Empires rose and fell. Everything repeated. There was no beginning and no end, just endless cycles. Zoroastrianism said something completely different. The universe is a battlefield. On one side stands Ahura Mazda, the god of light, truth, and order. On the other side stands Ahriman, the spirit of darkness, evil, and lies. And most importantly, this battle has an ending. Time is not circular. Time moves forward. There was a creation. There will be a final judgment, a last battle, a purification of the world by fire. This idea that time moves in a line seems obvious to us today. But in the ancient world, it was revolutionary, and it did not stay in Iran. When the Persians conquered Babylon in the 6th century before Christ, they freed the Jewish people who had been held there in captivity. For 2 centuries, Jewish thinkers lived close to Persian culture and Zoroastrian ideas. They absorbed the concept of linear time, the final judgment, the end of days. These ideas then flowed into Christianity, and from Christianity into Islam. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche himself acknowledged this. Iran gave the world the concept of time that all of us still live inside today. The first great Iranian state was called Media. It was formed around 670 before Christ. The Medes destroyed the feared Assyrian Empire. But their power did not last long. Their relatives, the Persians, rose up against them. In 550 before Christ, a man changed everything. His name was Cyrus. History would call him Cyrus the Great. He was half Persian and half Mede. He united both peoples, and he began building what historians call the first superpower in human history, the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus was not like the conquerors before him. When he entered a new city, he did not destroy the temples. He did not enslave the populations. He did not force people to abandon their gods. He respected local customs. He allowed local leaders to keep their positions. He understood something that very few rulers in history have understood. You can win a war with an army, but you can only hold an empire with the hearts of the people. When Cyrus conquered Babylon, he freed the Jewish people. He let them go home. He let them rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. In the Bible, the Jewish holy book, Cyrus is honored as a righteous king. This was an extraordinary tribute from a people he had helped. He did not force them to worship his gods. He simply set them free. His successor, Darius I, expanded the empire even further, from Egypt to the borders of India. Nearly 50 million people lived under Persian rule at that time. That was half the population of the entire earth. Darius organized the empire brilliantly. He divided it into 20 provinces called satrapies. He introduced a unified tax system. He minted gold coins. He built a network of roads across the empire. The most famous was the Royal Road, stretching more than 2,700 kilometers. Messages could travel from one end to the other in just 7 days. It was the fastest communication system the ancient world had ever seen. But Cyrus the Great himself met a terrible end. He marched his army into Central Asia to fight a nomadic tribe called the Massagetæ. The battle was devastating. The Persian army was destroyed. Cyrus was killed. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, the queen of the Massagetæ found his body. She cut off his head. She placed it in a bag filled with blood. She said, "You thirsted for blood. Now drink your fill." It was a brutal end for the greatest ruler of his age. The empire continued. But new troubles came from the west. We all know the story of the 300 Spartans, the brave Greeks defending their land against the Persian invasion. But here is something the movies do not tell you. For the enormous Achaemenid Empire, losing a few battles in Greece was not a catastrophe. It was like a mosquito bite. The Persians simply changed their strategy. They started paying Greek city-states to fight each other. First they funded Athens, then Sparta. The Greeks exhausted themselves fighting one another. And in 387 before Christ, the Greeks signed a humiliating peace treaty on Persian terms. What the Persian army could not take by force, Persian gold bought without a single arrow. But the real catastrophe came from Macedonia. A young and brilliant general named Alexander invaded in 330 before Christ. He defeated the Persian army. He marched into Persepolis, the magnificent ceremonial capital of the Persian kings, and he burned it. The great columns fell. The beautiful carvings were destroyed. The Achaemenid Empire was over. It seemed like the end of Iran. But this is exactly where the Iranian survival mechanism began to work. Alexander himself started wearing Persian clothes. He adopted Persian court customs. He married a Persian princess. He wanted to merge Greek and Persian civilization. His Greek generals did not like this at all. But Alexander understood the power of Persian culture. He died young in Babylon in 323 before Christ. He was only 32 years old. His empire collapsed. The Greek Seleucid rulers who followed him tried to make Iran more Greek. They built Greek cities. They promoted the Greek language. But Iranian culture was too deep, too strong, too old. It could not be erased. In the 3rd century before Christ, an Iranian tribe called the Parthians rose up and pushed the Greeks out. The Parthian king called himself King of Kings, the ancient Persian title. For 5 centuries, the Parthians held their ground against the Roman Empire itself. They developed a famous battle technique. Their cavalry would ride away from the enemy at full speed, and then turn around in the saddle and shoot arrows backwards with perfect accuracy. Historians called this the Parthian shot. Even today in English, when someone makes a sharp final comment as they are leaving, we call it a parting shot. The word lives on from those Iranian warriors of 2,000 years ago. Then, in the year 224 AD, a new Iranian dynasty rose to power. The Sassanians. They came from the same region as the original Persians, the land of Pars in southern Iran. They built a powerful and sophisticated empire. Zoroastrianism became the official state religion. Art and science and architecture flourished. Society was organized with care and order. For nearly 400 years, the Sassanians fought Rome and then the Byzantine Empire for control of Mesopotamia and the Caucasus. These were enormous wars, brutal and exhausting. And by the middle of the 7th century, the Sassanian Empire was weakened and exhausted from centuries of conflict. And from the deserts of Arabia, a completely new force arrived. Islam. The Arab Muslim armies were motivated by faith and extraordinary energy. In 651 AD, the Persian capital fell. The last Sassanian emperor fled and was killed. All of Iran came under Arab rule. The Arabs brought a new religion and a new language. Zoroastrianism, the ancient fire of Iran, began to fade. For any other civilization, this would have meant the total disappearance of identity. It happened to Egypt. It happened to Syria. Both became permanently Arabized. Their ancient languages disappeared. Their old cultures were buried under the new one. But Iran did it again. Iranian scholars and administrators became essential to the Arab Caliphate. Arab rulers adopted Persian methods of governance. The Persian language did not die. It survived. And the greatest scientific works and the most beautiful poems continued to be written in Farsi. Iran lost the political battle, but it won the cultural war. And then the worst catastrophe in Iranian history arrived. In 1220 AD, Genghis Khan came from the east. The Mongols were not just conquerors. They were destroyers. They did not just take cities. They erased them. They killed entire populations. They destroyed the ancient irrigation systems that had kept farmland fertile for 1,000 years. The land turned to desert. The population of Iran collapsed dramatically. It was a catastrophe almost beyond imagination. But then something happened that seemed impossible. The grandson of Genghis Khan, Hulagu, established a Mongol state in Iran called the Ilkhanate. And within a few decades, these ferocious nomadic warriors from the steppes of Asia did something nobody expected. They converted to Islam. They made Persian the official language of their state. They started building magnificent Persian mosques with blue domes. They funded Persian scholars and poets and artists. The conquerors had been conquered by culture. At the end of the 14th century, history repeated itself again. Tamerlane swept through Iran with terrifying violence. He killed entire cities. He built towers from the skulls of his victims. And yet, at the same time, he stood in awe of Persian art and culture. He took the finest Iranian craftsmen back to his own capital. His descendants, the Timurids, became great patrons of Persian miniature painting and poetry. They built libraries. They funded scholars. They became, in every meaningful way, Persian. For nearly 300 years, political power in Iran belonged to Mongols and Turks. But every single ruler who sat on the Iranian throne became Persian within a generation or two. The Iranian cultural code reprogrammed every invader who touched it. And then, in 1501, a young leader named Shah Ismail emerged. He reunited the country and founded the Safavid dynasty. The Safavids made Shia Islam the official religion of Iran. This was a profound decision. It separated Iran from its Sunni neighbors, the Ottoman Empire to the west, the Uzbeks to the east. Iran became a distinct civilization within the Islamic world, with its own identity, its own religious tradition, its own path. The greatest Safavid ruler was Shah Abbas I. He ruled from 1588 to 1629. He made the city of Isfahan his capital. He turned it into one of the most beautiful cities in the world. He built the magnificent Imam Square, one of the largest public squares ever constructed anywhere on earth. He built mosques of breathtaking beauty. European travelers who came to Isfahan were astonished. They said, "Half the world is Isfahan." This phrase became a Persian proverb that Iranians still say today. But by the 19th century, Iran entered a period of painful crisis. New great powers had arrived. Russia from the north, Britain from the south. Both wanted Iranian land. Both wanted Iranian resources. Iran lost wars with Russia. It was forced to sign humiliating treaties. It gave up territories that are today the countries of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. The Qajar Shahs, who ruled Iran at this time, were often weak and corrupt. They sold concessions, rights to Iranian resources, to foreign companies for personal profit. British companies pumped Iranian oil. Russian troops stood in the north. The Iranian people watched their country being sold piece by piece to foreign powers. The anger grew and grew. And in 1905, something remarkable happened. The Iranian people demanded a constitution. They demanded a parliament. They demanded limits on royal power. After years of struggle, they won. Iran became one of the first countries in Asia to have a constitutional government. It was a historic achievement. But foreign interference continued. And in 1925, a strong military officer named Reza Khan took power in a coup. He became Reza Shah Pahlavi. He modernized Iran with determination and force. He built roads and factories and schools. He reformed the army and the legal system. And in 1935, he did something that surprised the entire world. He sent an official message to every embassy and every government on earth. He said, "Stop calling our country Persia. That is a Greek name, a foreign name. Our true ancient name is Iran, the land of the Aryans. Use it." This was not just about language. It was a statement of identity. It said, "We are not an exotic fairy tale from someone else's imagination. We are a real modern nation with 5,000 years of history, and you will respect that." The world changed the name, and the name has stayed ever since. His son Mohammad Reza Shah continued to rule Iran until 1979. We told that full story in our last episode. The modernization, the White Revolution, the secret police, the growing opposition, and finally, the Islamic Revolution of 1979. The Shah flew away into exile. Ayatollah Khomeini returned. The Islamic Republic was born. The new Iran faced an immediate war. Iraq invaded in 1980. The war lasted 8 brutal years. Hundreds of thousands of people died, but Iran did not fall. Iran never falls. After the war, Iran slowly rebuilt again. As it has always rebuilt. The country developed its nuclear program. It faced international sanctions. It became one of the most important and most debated powers in the Middle East. And its people continued to create. Writers, filmmakers, poets, scientists. The creative energy of this civilization never stopped. And today we see something fascinating, something almost poetic. The word Iran makes many people think of geopolitical tension, of sanctions and conflicts and difficult news. But the word Persia, the old Greek name that Reza Shah rejected, has taken on a completely different meaning in the modern imagination. Persia sounds romantic, mysterious, ancient and grand. Flying carpets and fairy tale palaces and exquisite poetry. 2 names, 1 land, 1 extraordinary civilization, and a constant invisible struggle over how it will be remembered. Over 5,000 years, Iran developed the most powerful survival mechanism in human history. When the Macedonians came, they became Persian. When the Arabs came, Persian culture outlasted the Arabic language in Iran. When the Mongols came, they too became Persian within 2 generations. Iran did not survive by being the strongest army on the battlefield. It survived by being the deepest culture in the room. Iran stood at the very origins of civilization. It invented the concept of international diplomacy. It gave the world the idea of linear time, the very coordinates inside which all of us still think today. It produced some of the greatest scientists and poets and architects in human history. And it absorbed every conqueror who ever tried to erase it. The battle that Iran fights today may be its most complex yet. Not a battle of armies or cultures, but a battle of stories. A battle over how 5,000 years of history will be remembered. A battle between who Iran was, who Iran is, and how the rest of the world chooses to see it. History is never simple, and Iran's history is perhaps the least simple of all. Just like Iran has survived for 5,000 years by holding on to its language and its stories, we grow stronger as learners by holding on to every new word and every new story we encounter in English. Language is memory. Language is identity. Language is the thread that connects us across time. Every English sentence you understand is a small victory, a small act of connection with the wider world. Keep going, 1 word at a time, 1 story at a time. Thank you for listening to this story today. I hope you enjoyed this journey through 5,000 years of history. I hope it helped you with your English. If you liked this story, please give it a like. If you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. I would love to know which stories you want to hear next. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying the beautiful journey of English. And now, let us look at some words from today's story. Our first word is civilization. A civilization is a large and organized human society. It has cities, it has laws, it has writing and art and culture. Think about the difference between a small group of people living in the forest with no rules and no organization, and a great city with universities, hospitals, libraries, and courts of law. That great city is part of a civilization. In our story, Iran is home to one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. People have been building organized societies there for more than 6,000 years, long before most of the modern world even existed. The next word is absorbed. When we say Iran absorbed its conquerors, we mean something very specific. To absorb means to take something in and make it part of yourself. Think about a sponge in water. The sponge does not fight the water. It does not run from the water. It simply takes the water in, and the water becomes part of the sponge. Iran did this with every conqueror. The Mongols came as destroyers. Within 2 generations, they were speaking Persian and building Persian mosques. Iran took them in and made them Iranian. Now let us look at the word diplomacy. Diplomacy is the art of managing relationships between countries through conversation and agreements, not through war. A diplomat talks. A diplomat negotiates. A diplomat finds solutions without violence. The first written international treaty in human history was signed in the Iranian space. That means Iran was present at the very birth of diplomacy, of countries talking to each other instead of only fighting. This is an extraordinary historical fact that very few people know. Our next word is linear. Linear means in a straight line, from point A to point B, with a beginning and an end. We use this word to talk about time in our story. Before Zoroastrianism, most ancient cultures believed time was circular, like the seasons. Summer comes, winter comes, summer comes again, forever. Zoroastrianism said no. Time moves in a straight line. There was a beginning. There will be an end, a final judgment. This idea, linear time, is now so natural to us that we cannot even imagine thinking differently. But someone had to invent it first. And that someone was Iranian. The next word is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy means the system of officials and administrators who run a government or a large organization. Think about all the people who keep a country functioning every day. The tax collectors, the record keepers, the road builders, the postal workers, the governors of provinces. All of these people together form a bureaucracy. Darius I of Persia built one of the most sophisticated bureaucratic systems the ancient world had ever seen. He divided the empire into 20 provinces. He introduced standard taxes and coins. He created a postal system. This organized system of administration was far ahead of its time. Now, let us talk about the word conqueror. A conqueror is a person who defeats another people in war and takes control of their land. Alexander the Great was a famous conqueror. Genghis Khan was a famous conqueror. But our story makes an important point about conquerors. Winning a battle is one thing. Winning the culture of a people is something completely different. Many conquerors came to Iran. They won the battles. But they could not win the culture. And in the end, the culture won. Iran turned its conquerors into Iranians. This is perhaps the most remarkable thing in the entire story. Our next word is irrigation. Irrigation is a system of channels and canals that carries water to dry land so that crops can grow. In dry regions like Iran, irrigation is not just useful. It is the difference between life and death, between a green farm and a dead desert. When the Mongols destroyed the ancient Iranian irrigation systems, the farmland turned to desert. People starved. Entire regions that had supported large populations for 1,000 years became empty and dry. The destruction of irrigation was one of the most devastating consequences of the Mongol invasion. It shows us that sometimes the most destructive thing an army can do is not kill people, but destroy the systems that keep people alive. Now, let us look at the word concession. A concession is when you give something important to another person or another country, usually as part of a deal or because you have no choice. In our story, the weak Qajar Shahs gave concessions to foreign companies and foreign governments. They gave British companies the right to Iranian oil. They gave away trade routes and resources. They signed treaties that gave away Iranian land. The Iranian people were furious. They felt their country was being sold by its own rulers to foreign powers. The tobacco concession of 1890 was so hated that millions of Iranians stopped smoking overnight in protest. It was one of the first great acts of civil resistance in Iranian history. Our next word is theocracy. A theocracy is a type of government where religious leaders hold political power, where the laws of the country are based on religious texts and religious principles. In a democracy, people vote for their leaders. In a monarchy, power is inherited by a royal family. In a theocracy, religious authority is the highest authority. After the Islamic Revolution of 1979, Iran became an Islamic theocracy. The supreme leader of Iran is a religious scholar. He holds more power than the elected president. Religious law plays a central role in how the country is governed. This was a completely new type of government. not just for Iran, but for the modern world. And our last word for today is resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from terrible difficulties, to be knocked down again and again, and keep getting back up, to lose everything and start rebuilding, to suffer invasion and destruction and humiliation, and still survive with your identity intact. Think about a tree in a violent storm. The wind bends it almost to the ground. The branches break, but the roots hold deep in the earth. And when the storm passes, the tree is still there. That tree is resilient. In our story, Iran showed 5,000 years of extraordinary resilience. Invaded by Greeks and Arabs and Mongols and more, and still here, still speaking Persian, still writing poetry, still telling its story. And that is all for today, my friends. What a story we have told together. 5,000 years. Dozens of empires, countless invasions, and one civilization that refused to disappear. I hope these words help you. I hope this story stays with you. Until next time, keep learning, keep listening, and keep growing.